Hi, I'm JJ. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about book that I just finished, Cattle Kingdom by Christopher Knowlton. It was one of them that was on my Audible book TBR. So I finished it and it was very informative and interesting. I say it would be good, not great. I probably gave it a 3.75 stars. But if it were shorter, more condensed, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But there was a lot of interesting information throughout that I really enjoyed. There was several cameos. Our American president, Teddy Roosevelt, was featured a lot in it. Some antidote and stuff that I hadn't heard of from him before. And also Sherman and Custer and Buffalo Bill Cody, other famous American people. And it was interesting because it kind of gave a little bit of a rundown about the near extinction of the bison, the American buffalo, and it connected it to not only the farming need to not struggle with resources, having the longhorns need just as much land, but and food and space and stuff, so they had to eliminate the bison. But it was also two-pronged because the military also wanted to get rid of the Native American population that was left, and killing their food source was their way to try to eliminate as many of them as possible. So that was a part that was heavily focused on at the beginning. And then it also talked about the near extinction of wolves because they didn't want predators for their cattle. It showed how the drive west and the opening up of the land and stuff was made possible through, the railways and then also like inventions that you just never really thought about that were revolutionary at the time. Barbed wire for fencing, and also wind turbines that would help them get water. They otherwise would have to dig the wells, and it took a lot longer, and this made living out west a lot more feasible for them, especially as they were ranching and stuff like that. So that part was all interesting. Another part that I found interesting was when they were talking about the English aristocrats who came in and wanted to buy up a lot of land, and how there was a lot of Scottish and Irish people who escaped England, whether it was the wars and the tragedies and the famines and stuff they had there, or being pushed off their land by the aristocrats there who wanted more room to hunt, and so they would buy up all this land or kick people off their land, and they had no recourse and nowhere to go. And now they were really upset because those same kinds of aristocrats were now coming up here trying to buy the land here in the United States, and the newly immigrated Irish and Scottish people were very against having more barons and stuff over here. So that kind of politicalness, the foreign influence that involved the move out west was interesting. And just I feel like I learned a lot. I'm glad I read it. I would like to maybe find specific things and learn more about it. Like I really did like that foreign and immigrant aspect of the time. You think of all the ranchers, and you think of all the people expanding, whether it was the Oregon Trail, whether it was the Mormons moving out west, for all the different ways for the expansion. I never really considered the foreign influence of it, and how they just, the rich people wanted to, buy land here. And then once again, try to rule it or contain it from overseas. And I found that chapter really fascinating. I also just enjoyed the breadth of this, of what it encompassed, and it kind of gave me a bit more context for when I go back into reading Lonesome Dove, since that is about not just Western expansion, but about cattle raising and all this stuff. So I'm ranchers and stuff like that. So now that I have that context of that era, I feel like I will get a lot more out of the story. And along these lines, I had a couple more recommendations that I wanted to do that involve either history or animals in history. And one of them was a similar idea to this one, like when I talked about the first chapters being about the near extinction of the bison. There was another book by Stephen Rinella called American Buffalo that went more into detail about the government and the military's absolute preoccupation with trying to rid the West of the indigenous population, and it talked a lot more about that aspect when it comes to the buffalo, which I found very interesting in that book. But I actually enjoyed Cattle Kingdom more, just because it talked more about the entire history of the area and some things that I didn't know beyond just focusing on buffalo. Another one that kind of resembled this idea, and also deals with Western expansion and farmers and like ranchers and stuff, is Coyote America by Dan Flores. And that's was another fascinating book, just because of the propaganda and misinformation that these industries imposed upon coyotes, to also try to drive them out, and they wanted to make those completely extinct because they saw them as a nuisance. But coyotes are fascinating because they're a very resilient mammal, like one of the hardest ones to just exterminate, just because they adapt so well. And their problem with all this expansion is that we as humans leave so much trash and so much that coyotes can then use and thrive off of. So all of our waste product and all that stuff was what was bringing the coyotes closer to them, which then caused them to be a nuisance to these people who are trying to grow and expand. And some of the things that they did in that book to try to eliminate the population were horrific. And also just learning about the resilience that they had and how smart and adaptable they were to outsmarting the humans who are trying to kill them was a very fascinating take. And along those lines, Cattle Kingdom also talks about the near extinction of wolves because of them being predators to the cattle that they were raising. So that chapter and aspect of it was interesting as well. I have another book on wolves that I haven't read yet, but it's Of Wolves and Men, I believe it's called, that I have been meaning to read, and this just made me want to read it even more. And then two other recommendations that I have are not so much engrossing history, but they're more feature animals, part memoir and part like a dual biography based on the person. So Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller is about David Starr and how he identified so many of the fish species that we have, and how he categorized them in ways that were so interesting just because the way that we think that, oh, this one would be like this one and this one would be like, fish are so distinct and so dissimilar that to call everything in the water like a fish is just, it's, I don't, that book was fascinating. He as a person was not a very good person, and so the memoir by Lulu was actually, she was a huge fan of his until she learned more about his history and stuff, and what kind of person he was, and coming to terms with idolizing somebody, having a hero who ends up not just falling short, but being someone that, like, yes, they did great things, but they also were this kind of person, and trying to understand that duality within yourself and within the person that you are idolizing. Another book was H is for Hawk, and that was a really good one, also on grief. Helen MacDonald, she started raising a goshawk, and you get to learn how she trained it, how you breed these birds of prey, kind of like falconry, but not with falcons, but with the hawk. And I always wanted to be a falconer. Actually, I always just thought that was a fascinating thing to do. But then hearing about how much goes into it and all that is just, it was fascinating to learn how hard it actually would be. And she used that as a way to get over losing her dad, and dealing with that grief and loneliness. But she also did a dual biography of T.H. White, who wrote Once and Future King, which is about the legend of King Arthur, the sword, you think of the sword and the stone, Merlin, all that stuff. And so he had a book called Goshawk, and he was trying to raise it, and he did it like the old way that's more barbaric and stuff, and she was kind of doing what she did versus what he did, but then also his life story, which I didn't know anything about his life, and I found him like utterly compelling. And I already obsessed with anything King Arthur and stuff, so just hearing more about his inspiration for that, like his life before writing that and all that stuff was really cool. So I recommend all of those. The last two were excellent books. The other ones were good, worth reading, just not great books. And then two that I want to read, that I actually got a book recommendations from Steve Donahue. He's another YouTuber that I follow, and he had recommended Superdove. It's like the history of pigeons. Pigeons terrify me, so I actually wanted to read more about them. So that's by Courtney Humphries. So that is now on my TBR, and as well as Among the Bone Eaters, which is about hyenas. And he said it was like a history of the area and of hyenas as well. So I'm hoping that will be kind of like the American Buffalo and the Cattle Kingdom books, where it has this all-encompassing story that uses one animal as its singular focus as it's talking about a wide range of topics. And that's by Baynes-Rock. So those are the books that I recommend, that I want to read, and the one that I just got done reading. So I hope that you find at least something of interest in this video, or in one of the books in general that will make you want to buy it, read it, whatever. So happy reading.